Fresh out the box.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to Fresh Out the Podcast. This is going to be the best podcast of the year so far. I'm Jahan Anan, board game guru, game master extraordinaire, etc.
It's me, Casualty CDG. It was on the second day of the year, at the crack of noon, that I crawled out of my cocoon and became the new man I am today. I'm a podcaster now.
Did you have a goof phase?
Yeah, I had a goof phase.
Okay, cool.
It was
just
between
liquid?
Christmas and New Year's. I was liquid.
I am the professional media and movie mastermind, the Funhouse, Drew Munhausen, and it is episode 114 of Fresh Out the Podcast, the first episode of 2024, and we threatened it previously, and now it's really going to happen, that we're giving our top movies, TV, and games
Of the
2023.
year! Yeah!
Wow, good for us. Good for us. We made it to the end of another year. And so did most of our listeners. And the ones that didn't, well, they're not here to hear about it, I guess.
That's true.
We've reevaluated this process a bit. I did mention on an earlier episode that I had gone back and listened to our top fives of last year, and it was just a mess in the process that we went about it.
Drew, we get it. It was a train wreck. We get it.
It really isn't that bad. It was still very enjoyable. Even listening back, I was having a good time. But just like I said, when I was trying to find our lists by listening to it, it was kind of a disaster. So we have discussed, and we are each going to do. First off, we're only doing our top threes in each category because we realized that 5 per person
Five's
for
a
different
lot.
categories was 45 different things we needed to go through, and that's a lot. Here we're keeping it a little bit tighter by doing 3 each for each category, and we're just going to go through each one of us and do our top threes with a little bit of commentary. Of course, it wouldn't be a podcast without some commentary. But yeah, so we'll do movies first, then we will do our TV.
And I think it's only fair and pretty obvious, if you ask me, that you would start the movies. You are the resident movie guy.
I like this. I'm going to do movies. Gary's going to take the lead on our TV, top TV, and Jahan will take the lead on our games.
Yeah, I'm the games
each
guy.
get our little territory, and should we just jump right into it? I guess I could ask you first, do y'all have a good new year? Do anything fun? Make any resolutions? Anything like that?
Yes, no, and yes.
Yes, I had a good New Year's. Yeah, no, I didn't do anything fun, and no, I didn't make any resolutions, and here's why. Because I am trying to be a better person every day, and I've been trying to do this for like 2 years or so, and I'm still on that journey. So I don't need a new me yet. I'm still working on what I'm working on. I'm just trucking along, man.
I get that. I'm kind of in the same boat as far as like I just kind of always have these goals I'm trying to achieve. And while it is nice to start a new year and kind of feel like you have a clean slate a little bit, it's like, yeah, just got to keep doing better, not because it's a new year, just make sure I'm back on the wagon of what I've already been doing.
Exactly.
How about you, Jahan? What you did say you made some resolutions.
I made the same resolution I make every year, Drew, to break off my love relationship with you, and I just haven't been able to do it yet. So this is
I'm
the
glad.
year.
I'm glad that's the case, that you haven't been able to, and I'm going to be willing to bet that you won't be able to break it off again this year. And with that, I do say we can start with our movies, because I just don't know how long this is going to go. This could either go very quickly, or it could go very long. But I am going to give my top 3 movies of the year, and I'm going to start with number 3, and then go to number 1. And my number 3 top movie of the year is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And I think when I was just reviewing movies of this year, it was a pretty good year. I had like a lot of 4-star movies across the board, some 4.5s and some 5s. And Across the Spider-Verse in review, I'm like, this movie's just kind of undeniable for me. Like, it's just, it's not as revolutionary as Into the Spider-Verse was as far as how new it was, but the fact that it was able to just continue that level of quality and be as strong as it was, Into the Spider-Verse, which was my number 1 movie of 2018, I have to put Across the Spider-Verse as my number 3 movie of the year. So that is my number 3.
It's a good pick, buddy.
I actually haven't seen it. I did see the first one, but I haven't seen Across the Spider-Verse.
I'm surprised. This is one that I just assumed everybody had seen, but I forget Thomas was on this episode where we talked about this movie. You were unavailable for whatever reason.
I'm sure it's awesome from, what I know about the Spider-Verse. I actually didn't see this one this year. And that's actually a lot of your list. It looks great, but there are things that I haven't had the opportunity to see.
It is streaming now, I believe, on Netflix, which I know you just recently subscribed to again. So you can check this out now. It is streaming.
You really got to, man.
That's really good.
It's really
good. So I just, you guys know I just finished another show, so I've got time. I've got time to watch something. So I'll jam some Spider-Verse into my pipe.
My number 2 movie of the year is Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. And again, one that, the whole Barbenheimer was a sensation. When the two were coming out, I was looking much more forward to Barbie than I was to Oppenheimer, but of course I had to see Oppenheimer out of obligation. I like most of Christopher Nolan's movies, but to varying degrees, and I just thought Oppenheimer was incredible, and I went and saw it again while it was still in theaters with my wife, and I enjoyed it just as much the second time, and it just confirmed my love for this movie. I think this might be my favorite. It is my favorite non-Batman Christopher Nolan movie, and even still, it might be my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. I'm not sure, which I know is like,
but
bold,
Batman though.
I mean, The Dark Knight, yes. I like it for sure better than Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises. It's up there with The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight's so good. I haven't seen it in a few years. Anyways, Oppenheimer's my number 2. And number 1, which is my number 1 movie of the year. It was also my number 1 most anticipated movie of 2023. And so this one just really panned out for me across the board. And that is Killers of the Flower Moon, directed by Martin Scorsese. And I read the book a year ago, so I was prepped and I was ready. and I love this movie. I think it is a achievement in film, and I do think it'll be in the awards race heavily, although it still seems like the year of Oppenheimer. But for me personally, Killers of the Flower Moon is my number one movie of the year. So that's it. That's my top three: Across the Spider-Verse, and Oppenheimer, and Killers of the Flower Moon.
Gary, have you seen any of those?
No, that's what I was saying. I haven't seen his list. Those are really strong picks. And
I've only
I haven't-
seen Spider-Verse on his list.
So I'm not interested, honestly, still not interested in Oppenheimer, but I do think
I get it for sure. Like
It's too long.
believe
man.
me,
Too long.
I
But Killers of the
couldn't have
Flower
cared less
Moon-
about the subject matter.
I think that's a really important story to tell, the Killers of the Flower Moon story. And I
Isn't
think
it
it's a story
also
that
3
needs
hours
to be-
long though?
It's 3.5 hours. It's
Jesus
even longer
Christ.
than Oppenheimer.
But that's something I could actually get behind. So I think when it's available, I will watch Killers of the Flower Moon. That's on my radar for sure. And it's not just your hype. I mean, it's hype everywhere. And it seems to be those two in contention for top movies in a lot of places you look right now.
See, in the days of VHS, I always appreciated how easy it was to tell that a movie was unbearably long, because they used to you'd see them on the shelf, Braveheart, Titanic, they'd be 2 tapes like stuck together.
Killers of the Flower Moon would for sure be 2 VHS tapes. Oppenheimer maybe, but I mean it would be pushing it to fit it on 1 VHS.
My top 3 of the year, a totally different top 3 than yours, which I like. I like this. This is nice. It's nice to spread it out, to have some different eyes and opinions. I think your list is stronger than mine. I'm just going to go out flat out and say it. Mine's not an Oscar list. Mine's just what I enjoyed this year. And looking back, I enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy 3. It's hard to believe that it came out this year. That seems like that came out 2 years ago. But that was the Marvel movie this year. It crushed Ant-Man, in my opinion, no doubt. It was it. It was the hit, and it probably should have been their summer blockbuster.
Not only that, but in a year where comic book movies in general were kind of the quality maybe slipping a little bit across the board, Marvel and DC, I would say now, like, unquestionably the best comic book movie of the year, right? Well, no, well, Across the Spider-Verse I had in my top 3. That's the
And I
other
liked-
one, but
I quite liked Blue Beetle also, and given that it was in the DC verse, the fact that it could stand on its own legs is really impressive, because the DC verse has been cursed with bad movies. But Blue Beetle didn't make my list. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 comes in on my number 3 slot. Number 2, Barbie. Barbie did make my top 3 list, but not my top 1.
Hell yes.
I did. Yeah, man, I loved Barbie. And again, when we talked about it, you remember I told you guys I had no expectations. I didn't watch the trailers. I didn't know what I was expecting or getting myself into. It's almost one of those things that I'll never forget. You know, I'll remember going to theaters to see the Barbie movie and being totally blown away by how good it was. I think I'll remember that until I'm an old man. So not only is it my top 3 of the year, but it probably... It's some kind of cult classic, instant cult classic in my mind somewhere that belongs in its own category. And my final one for the year, my number 1 totally strange pick here out of left field, was actually Asteroid City. I loved the acting. I really liked the odd plot, and I'm a huge fan of the single location sort of set work they did with the moving camera work and the colors. I had a lot of fun watching Asteroid City. And I would watch it again. I would probably watch it, 2 more times and love it 2 more times over. And that's it, man. That's my top 3 of 23.
The
Nice.
discourse, I really like your list first off, and I love Asteroid City as your number 1. And the discourse around Asteroid City has been very strange, just because when it came out, you had really 2 sides. Like, you had the people that were like, another Wes Anderson masterpiece, just overall great, and then there was a good portion of I'm really speaking as far as like film Twitter, which they're like, it can sometimes be terminally online, just terrible
Yeah.
takes. But there was another side that was just like, we've, Wes Anderson, we're over it. Like, this is getting
Incorrect.
too cutesy, that kind of thing.
Incorrect.
And-
Yeah.
Mostly seeming very troll-ish. And there's a lot of critics that I like and follow that are putting Asteroid City in their top 10 lists, which is like where,
Right.
absolutely should be. But then there was a writer for Variety who listed Asteroid City amongst the worst movies of the year, which just seemed like an
Oh.
ultimate troll move. Like,
Oh yeah, that's clickbait.
I mean,
yeah.
they were getting raked across the coals. So it's just, I don't know. It's an interesting discourse. I'm with you, Gary. Like, Asteroid City, great movie, deserves to be in this spot.
Oh yeah, I'm with you too, man. It was
Really good.
almost on my top 3 as well. Like I was I struggled with that one in particular because I really liked Asteroid City. I don't know, man. People talking about Wes Anderson like, oh, we're over. It's like you're over the one guy that has is one of the most unique
Distinct
styles,
style?
something that's
Yeah.
different. It's not the same. I don't know. It's weird. It's a
I
weird
get
thing to
being,
be over.
like I'm totally over. Maybe not. I think I'm over Tim Burton's style. You know what I mean? But at least he's got a style.
At least he's got
and
a
I-
style. Yeah.
And Wes Anderson's got a style. I like that. I like a director that really has a style, and it can be a lot of fun to watch that stuff.
And Asteroid City was weirdly put out in theaters in the middle of the summer, which just it seems odd. I feel like had it come out in October or November, that it would be in the conversation, like in the awards conversation more. But yeah, it's a shame.
I thought it was great. But yeah, I'll pick it up with my top 3. I'll start with my number 3 this year. It was almost Asteroid City. It actually was Godzilla Minus One. Maybe a surprise. Japanese language film. It is pretty much a retelling of the Godzilla story, but it is definitely the best Godzilla movie I've ever seen. It is fantastic. There's so much good, there's so many good human moments, but they don't overdo it. You still get Monster Smash, and the Monster Smash is supremely satisfying. It's probably not just the best Godzilla. It's probably the best kaiju film that I've ever seen. Like, it's really, if you like that genre, this is the top of the genre.
When you
so.
say Monster Smash, are they getting down and dirty on the screen? You know what I mean?
They're getting down and dirty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Godzilla goes to a couple towns in Tokyo or in Japan, and yeah, he takes them to Pound Town. Yeah, it's pretty
Love to hear that.
pretty good.
This is one of the ones that I looked up to see if it was going on in my town. I was going to go catch it, but it was not going on in my town.
Which I think is a real shame. I feel we're coming a long way with these foreign language films being more mainstream, and like you don't have to go to like strange indie theaters anymore. Like I saw this at Cinemark, but in smaller towns, it's still not quite there. But hey,
Look, I don't want anybody to lose their job or anything, but I think they could use a new manager or new assistant manager keeping an eye on film over there.
yeah. Hey, maybe they should hire the movie mastermind over here, Mr. Drew Munhausen.
They couldn't
Hey,
pay him
you know.
what he's worth.
That's probably true.
At me, just at me.
My number 2 is Gary's number 2. Barbie coming in at number 2 for me. Barbie is such a good movie. I jam out to the soundtrack. I just can. There's so many bops on this soundtrack, and the movie itself is fantastic. It is a beautiful, wonderful societal commentary that's done very well, and it's not preachy. It's fun. It's honest. I feel like a lot of people got a lot out of this movie. Felt a little cathartic, I don't know, man. Men need to be put in their place. Satirize us, please do. By all means, we have it coming. Barbie was fantastic. Everyone in that film killed it, 100%. Barbie number 2, no question. And then my number 1 is Across the Spider-Verse. I thought about this for a while, and I was like, of course that's my number 1. That movie was insanely good. Like, it made me cry. It brought me to tears. I think twice. I think there's 2 moments, and it's just such a great movie. I don't know. I could talk about Spider-Verse all day, and we did once already, so I'm not gonna beat that dead horse. But hey, if you haven't seen it, Gary, go check it out. It's on Netflix. So
Don't talk to me like that.
I don't tell me to talk to you. You like
we
it?
did an entire episode
like
on
it.
that movie. So yeah, go back, listen to that discussion. We had a special guest in Thomas on that episode. So yeah, go back,
Let's
give it a
talk
listen.
about some honorable mentions for movies, guys.
Oh yeah, I had a couple. So one of mine was Astro City, and another one, Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. That was
That's right.
honestly, that movie completely blew my expectations out of the water too. It was hard not to put it on my top 3, but hey, there's 3 spots, so I had to give it to some other movies I felt were more deserving. But D&D, the movie, blew everyone's minds. So yeah.
Yeah, better than I expected. That could have easily fought Guardians of the Galaxy 3 for my number 3 slot. They could have gone back and forth, but I think Guardians of the Galaxy 3 deserves that slot. I think it does earn it over D&D, but that's a good honorable mention. I'm with you there.
So on New Year's Eve, as the clock struck midnight, I sat there, had a little bit of champagne. I'm sitting there on my letterbox, and I was like, I'm gonna make my top 10 list, my top 10 movies of 2023, and I made my list on Letterboxd. So if and I've shared it on my different social media. So if you want to see it, you can go see it there. I will say there are 3 movies that I saw within the past week that I have not talked about yet on the podcast that all made it into my top 10. So I don't know if that's recency bias or what, but it was like some big movies I needed to catch up on. But just really quick, in my top 10, my number 4 was The Holdovers, which is just great. I don't know if either of y'all have decided to check this out yet. It is streaming on Peacock now, but really liked that movie and rewatched it. Past Lives, and then Maestro and May December are both on my list, but the 3 that I saw recently that have made it in my top 10 are Ferrari and Poor Things and Anatomy of a Fall. And those are all great movies that I just want to shout out, that they're in my top 10, but they did not make my top 3.
Well done.
That takes us to Fresh TV. Our
Fresh.
top 3 picks of 2023 for Fresh TV. Let me kick it off here. I got a little tasty 3-piece for you guys. Let's start with Gen V. That's my number 3. And this was a hard pick for me. I was going back and forth trying to pick where Gen V. First of all, if Gen V should be the number 3. I see you guys have some stuff listed in your honorable mentions. These are the things that were pushing it. This was trying to make it move. Gen V comes in at my number 3 slot. I would love to watch another season, but the way it ended, I'm sure they would have to start with new characters or maybe a new location. I'm not sure what they would have to do. And that's kind of why it got the number 3 slot for me. I'm not like chomping for another season. It was pretty good, but I don't know what now. Next, we go to The Last of Us, which this is another one that feels like it was a year ago or 2 years ago. It barely feels like it was. But Last of Us was great. Absolutely phenomenal performances. Great takeaway from the world. Amazing standalone episodes. Just everything about that show, from the acting to the set to the monsters, was just crushing it. Love The Last of Us, and it comes in at my number 2.
Let me just interrupt you here to say, because
buddy.
there is something weird with TV in particular where you're right. The Last of Us feels like it came out 2 years ago or longer. Like, when I look back at the movies I watched this year and the movies that I saw in early January of 2023, those feel like I watched them a year ago. And even though The Last of Us was essentially a, what was it? Was it 8 episodes or 10? I can't even remember. But it was a multiple week experience in the first half of 2023. It still feels like ages ago. And TV just has that effect for me in general, because most of my shows that we'll get to later, I'm like, I can't believe that came out in 2023.
The real kicker for me is I moved this year, and so like when I think back to when I watched that, it was at another house or in another location, so I'm like, how long ago was that? That was my number 2, The Last of Us. My number 1, this is actually something I've been hot on these past couple weeks, is the One Piece live action show. It made a lifelong One Piece fan out of me. Just out of the 8 or 10 episodes, whatever it was, they're phenomenal, and now I'm watching the anime. I definitely prefer the live action to the anime, but they got me hooked because the live action is so good, and then you're just like, well, and maybe I need some background noise. from performances to costumes to monsters to this new world, this new setting. I know it's not new for One Piece, but it's new for the rest of us. And so trying to get people to buy into this new world is always a daunting task. They did an incredible job, and I was even thinking today as I was walking around how awesome the costumes were. Like the way that the Marines wear the same uniform, but they all fit a little different, or they wear them with a little bit different flair. The characters, they each sort of make it their own. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Super hot on One Piece. Can't wait for another season. I would, if I had to pick, Gen V, Last of Us, or One Piece to get another season now, it would be One Piece. I want to watch it right now. I want to watch another season of that live action show. Those are my top three shows of this year.
How much of the anime have you watched now?
I've watched like the first 4 episodes or so.
Okay.
There's like part of me that wants to like skip the first arc, you know what I mean? Because I already know the arc, but then the other part of me wants to see what the source material was like, or, not source material, because I guess it was a manga first. So I just kind of want to see where it came from. I want to see the differences. One of the things that I hit immediately was that like character arcs and exposition, the anime just slams you with them right in the face from the get-go. They're like, here's everyone's story, get to know the character. But in the live action version, they give the characters a bit more mystery, and they play it out over multiple episodes to really get you hooked into the character that way. So it's subtle changes like that I think are great and make the live action one so much more watchable. But it is still true to the source, which I like, just paced differently.
Yeah, I was genuinely curious about what the transition from the live action to the anime is like, because I'm sure there are a lot of people that are tuning into the anime for the first time that maybe watch the Netflix with no exposure to the anime. That being said, I don't know if it has like the Dragon Ball Z issue where you remember the big moments and there's like some great storylines, but then there's a lot of filler episodes too.
It doesn't have these huge charge up moments where you're just waiting and waiting and waiting for a character to charge. And the other thing that Dragon Ball Z did that always annoyed me was the last half of the episode would be explaining the first half of the next episode.
Yeah.
And then the first half of the next episode would be a recap. And so every episode was just half of an episode mixed with another half of the next episode. But no, there's none of that kind of lazy work so far that I've seen in One Piece. It's almost like a monster of the week kind of situation where he's fighting a different big pirate and fighting another big pirate and on to his adventure to fight another big pirate. Maybe it's all filler, you know what I mean? Because none of these pirates really mean anything, but it's a lot of fun to watch. And, friendship, and of course, is a really big theme in that. And I like friends.
I like friends. I think you'll be pleased to hear that I do not know of any negative stereotypes associated with One Piece fans. So, there's a lot of animes that's like, oh, you like that one? Apparently My Hero fans are known to be smelly. So that's fun. But I don't know. It's just, I haven't heard anything about One Piece. So, it's good. I'm next. My top 3 list. Number 3, same as Gary, Gen V was awesome. Came out of left field. You know how these spin-off shows are never any good? This one's very good. It rivals the source show. It's a great show. It's kind of My Hero Academia-y, except way more adult.
The way that everyone's powers sort of have their own drawback or a monkey's paw type effect. I really love that. No one just gets away with having a good power.
Oh, no, yeah, their powers are awful. Like, it's the worst. And, like, I don't know. I love that about the Boys universe. It's like they're trying to give a realistic view of superpowers. What if people had superpowers? Well, people are shitty. They would do shitty things with them all the time. Powers are dangerous, and people would accidentally die a lot. So yeah, it's pretty fun. I like it a lot. Gen V is great. If you haven't watched it, watch it. My second one, Invincible, number 2, show of the year, 2023. Invincible season 2.
Man. Almost. It was only half a season.
It was only half a season, but it was a great half a season. The show came back. I mean, the first season was perfect. The first season was fantastic. The first season was one of the greatest pieces of, I've said it before, superhero media I've ever seen. I didn't think season 2 would be able to live up, but hey, it does. It holds its own. It does some really interesting things. It gives you that. It gives you. They do all the tropes, but they do them in these interesting, fresh ways. And like the fact that you know it's a trope, they almost somehow use that to their advantage. It's a brilliant show. I love it so much. Invincible's great.
I'm with you 100%. Season 2, so far, so good. The only reason it didn't make my list is because it's only half of a season. But
That's fair.
So far, so good.
That is fair. But I just couldn't. I had to put it on there. I love it so much. And then my number one, The Last of Us. I mean, The Last of Us, Jesus, like everyone cried. What was it? The second or third episode, that was controversial. Like everyone in my family cried. It was one of the most beautiful. They had one of the most beautiful episodes of television ever. So for that alone, they get show of the year for me. And then plus that, zombies. I love zombies. Plus brutal murder. I love that. It was such a great show, full of action, full of emotionality, full of just goodness. Fantastic.
You're of course talking about the Bill and Frank episode 3 with Nick Offerman.
There you go. Yeah, Nick Offerman killed it. Mm-hmm. Not a dry eye in the house, dude. Not a dry eye in the house.
Yeah, that was great. And from what I can tell, from what I gathered, they changed it from the source material, but somehow made it better. They made it a little bit better for TV. So if you're gonna make it better, no complaints here.
No complaints here. Yeah, it was a great show. I can't wait for the next season. Oh man. And then Ellie, Jesus Christ, Ellie's such a good actor. Whatever.
I really like your list, Jahan.
Thanks.
I really like it.
No, we had some good lists.
I'm going to jump into my list, which at number 3 is actually a show that Gary turned me on to earlier this year, and this is one of those that I can't believe came out this year, which I could say about all of them on my list, is Jury Duty, the Freevee candid camera-esque show about our boy... was it Randall, I believe is his name, who was tricked into jury duty surrounded by actors and put into some incredible situations. It is a show that has stuck with me. The James Marsden performance in this show is incredible.
Absolutely hilarious. And do you know anything about the future of this show? Are they going to get another season? Are the creatives working on something similar?
I do not know. I hope so, because these kinds of shows I could watch forever. I just feel like they did this so well with short episodes, 8 episodes. It didn't wear out its welcome. Right when the premise could have gotten to be too much, they pull back the curtain. And just listening to the interviews and everything around this, it might be really hard for them to duplicate. I feel like just the stars aligned for them to have this great season of TV. But I really liked it. This actually came up. I had a work holiday lunch a couple weeks ago, and we were all convincing a coworker to watch the show because a few of us had seen it, and just the discussions around it and all the moments we were remembering when trying to sell somebody on a show made me realize, like, oh, this show's so fun, and it's kind of has like a lasting impact in the culture a little bit for comedy. So yeah, I put Jury Duty as my number 3.
See, I think it'd be fun because I don't know if they could do the jury duty thing again. Maybe, a lot of jurors. I'm sure they haven't seen this, but they should try something new, like hire an intern at a fake office or something, and see how long they can trick them into like working there or something like that.
The lucky thing is they only need to be one person that hasn't seen the show. It focuses on one. So. Yeah, we'll see. I'll be interested. I'm sure they're going to try something because the show was such a success.
One of the things that you have to do in a show like this to keep it successful, and why the jury duty works, is because you can cut people off from the outside. They can't check their phone. True. They can't Google the show. They can't figure out anything. So you almost have to put them on, something that they think is a reality show. But those are already scripted. Everybody knows that. That's why jury duty works so well, is no one's expecting that to be scripted. But you still need that kind of thing where you can cut people off from the outside world. I'm sure that the creative team's working on something. I haven't found anything. I've been looking for it. I'll let you guys know if I ever learn, because that was a good pick, Drew. Jury Duty was amazing.
Yeah, I when I was looking through the TV shows I'd watched and saw this, I was like, this has to be, I want it to be present in my list. I want to be able to talk about it. And the same with my number 2, which was The Bear season 2. Just an incredible first season of the show, and the second season was just as good and had some iconic moments in it. I really enjoyed The Bear, and I can't wait for the future of the show, and especially the stars that we're seeing come out of The Bear now, like Jeremy Allen White, was just in the Iron Claw, and Io Edebiri, who's been like all over the place. I just watched another comedy that she's in called Bottoms, and it's hilarious. I really, really enjoyed The Bear, and this show is going to be, season 3 is going to be a big deal whenever it comes out. And going to my number 1, which is a show that ended this year, but Succession. Man, this show was just incredible. I caught up with the first 3 seasons this year, right as the 4th season was starting. So I got to watch the 4th season live and be part of the dialogue that was going on around the show. And man, just this one's an all-timer for me. Like I will revisit the show in the future of one of the HBO greats in my opinion. So that's Succession season 1. Oh, excuse me, season 4, the final season. And then honorable mentions, we can go through. I was saving my talk for Invincible. Gary, I echo everything you say about Invincible. It's on my honorable mentions for the same reason as you. I caught up on the first season recently. Obviously, I've talked about it a lot in recent weeks, and I loved the first season. Caught up on the second season. And while for recency purposes, I wanted to put it in my list, A, I assumed it would be on one of y'all's lists, and B, it's half a season, like you said. So, I'm
totally
sure
fair. Yeah.
Invincible season 2 could end up on my top shows of 2024 at the end of the year. It remains to be seen.
Dude,
Might be on mine too.
I'm worried that they might bust a U-turn, and I don't expect it, right? But you never know. You could have a great first season and then just totally crap it out on the second season finale. I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do. I have faith, but if you don't have the second half of the season, it's hard for me to all aboard on it.
That's fair. The second half could be like super racist or something. We don't even know.
Right? Yeah, it just totally catches us off guard. It's funny on our honorable mention, we all have the same show. So a show that was not good enough to be good, but it was good enough that we all liked it. And I think that's a really, really fair review of Twisted Metal. The show, of course, is Twisted Metal. We all watched it. We all apparently liked it. None of it made the top 3. They're making another season. I'm looking forward to it. It was a lot of fun. I'm just not sure if good was the word.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, this show might be bad. Like I'm not sure, but the way that we all binged it and then talked about it on an episode, and I feel like we were we were in this corner of the internet as the only people talking about this show. Man, I just had such a good time. My experience with y'all really made this, and then it was fun to see Anthony Mackie show up at the Game Awards earlier this month and confirm that season 2 was happening. So we're gonna get more.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
See, I was a little higher on it. It was almost my number 3. Like, this and Gen V were fighting. I really enjoyed Twisted Metal. I thought I couldn't stop watching. It was addictive. It was just so funny and twisted and metal, and yeah, it was good.
Yeah, and then I also had The Last of Us on my honorable mentions, which, nothing more needs to be said. Jahan, I feel like you spoke about it very eloquently. I loved that show, and in any other year, it would have been in my top 3, but just the 3 that I chose, I feel like remained with me a little bit more. But man, I'm excited for whenever season 2 of The Last of Us does come out.
I agree.
Which I guess that means we move on to Fresh Games?
Fresh Games, which I'm headlining this event, y'all.
Hell yeah. Take it away.
I don't know, there's a lot of games that I enjoyed this year. I haven't been as up to date as I like with games. Like, I feel like if I had actually gotten around to playing Super Mario RPG, it would have been on my list. But hey, it's all good. This one came out of nowhere for me. I enjoyed playing it immensely. Exoprimal, free on Game Pass, fantastic game, where it's a champion shooter. champion third-person shooter where you're killing dinosaurs against another team racing the clock. It's very fun. One of the most fun co-op experiences of the year for me. There were other games that I played a lot this year, but they came out at like the end of 2022, so I put them in my honorable mentions. I'll talk about them later. Number 2, I'm happy to say Tears of the Kingdom did not disappoint. It somehow was better than Breath of the Wild, which is crazy. It did everything Breath of the Wild did, made it better, added this whole new level of things with the building. The building was insane. It broke the internet. Tears of the Kingdom, fantastic game. It's iconic and instant classic. Yeah, it's a fantastic game. I loved it, absolutely. And then my number 1, to no one's surprise, is everyone's number 1 in the world, apparently. Baldur's Gate 3. I'm not alone in saying this game killed it. This game was fantastic. It was so fun. It's pure Dungeons and Dragons. It's Dungeons and Dragons in its purest form with full voice acting, more options than you'll ever get in another game. All these impactful dialogue options, killer turn-based combat, deep lore, fantastic story. This game has everything. If you like RPGs, this is the best of them. Baldur's Gate 2 for a long time, one of my favorite games of all time. Baldur's Gate 3 is a worthy successor. And, it's not a hot take because everyone agrees, apparently. Well, from a critical standpoint.
Everyone who matters, you mean?
Yeah, not you clowns. No. And that's it. That's my
That's
top
a good
3.
list. I'm surprised to see Exoprimal on your list.
I
know
enjoyed
it's
it a
got
lot.
dinosaurs and guns. I didn't realize you liked it that much.
I liked it a lot, and it's just, like, a lot of the games I played didn't come out this year, and I'm trying to keep my list to 2023 releases.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was doing the same, I was doing that, and I was like, I'm gonna limit my games to games that I completed this year, which I know for y'all, for a lot of like multiplayer games, you can't really have that as an option.
It's not
like,
really
it's not
the
one
thing.
you complete. But I play a lot of single player. But I'll get to my number 2 in a second. My number 3, I went with Resident Evil 4 remake, which I talked about this on the show earlier this year when I was playing it. I did not play the original Resident Evil 4. It's one that's been in my backlog for decades at this point. That being said, when the remake came out, I was like, this is my chance to play this in a truly definitive version, and I loved every second of playing Resident Evil 4. I loved the trend of the Resident Evil remakes. I think they're all fantastic, and Resident Evil 4 is probably the best one yet. Really loved this game, had a great experience, and had to include it in my top 3 of the year because I liked it so much. So that's Resident Evil 4
That's the same
remake.
experience I had with Resident Evil 2. I hadn't played it ever, and then they did a full remake where it was brought up to like the new graphics, new controls. Very fun, very satisfying. I understand.
I've always liked, I've played some Resident Evil games in the past. Like I remember playing Resident Evil 2, the original, on Nintendo 64. For me, I didn't have a PlayStation, so I had it on N64. That being said, when they started doing the new, when 7 came out and it was first person perspective, I was like, okay, I can get into this. I can play this kind of Resident Evil. And then the Resident Evil 2 remake came out, and I was like, no, this is what I want from a Resident Evil game. Give me all of this. They can remake all of them. I'm fine with that. So yeah. Anyway, my number 2, again, I said that I wanted to have games that I had completed on my list, but Baldur's Gate 3 is just undeniable. Like I couldn't not have it on my list. I almost didn't include it at all because A, I knew that y'all would talk about it, and B, I hadn't finished it. But Baldur's Gate 3, it's my number 2. I'm still in the middle of it. I'm deep into Act 2 now in the what's it called, Jahan? The Moonrise Towers? Is that what they're called? Moonrise Towers?
Yeah, Moonrise Towers. Yeah, that's right at the end of Act 2.
I'm like I've been there, and I'm doing other stuff. So but yeah, I'm deep in Act 2. I do feel like Baldur's Gate 3, it might be just because I've put more than 30 hours into the game at this point, and so the newness has worn off. I've kind of found myself slowing down with my playtime a little bit as I got into Act 2. I don't think that's any indicator of the game itself. I just think it's, you start to get that itch of like, do I want to start playing other things? But every time I jump back into it, I'm like, no, this is incredible. So that's Baldur's Gate 3. I'm gonna keep on keeping on. Jahan, have you beaten it yet? Or are you still in Act 3?
No, I'm still working on it.
Okay.
I'm rocking in Act 3. I did the thing where I got to a point where like really important stuff's about to happen, and I became paralyzed and scared. So I put it down, and I haven't picked it back up yet. But I'm about to go back to it.
Yeah.
I don't like it when things end, so I procrastinate.
I'm being very thorough in my first playthrough, like really trying to do everything as much as I can. And I feel like once I get through that first playthrough, I'll be really excited to make more characters and like skip the stuff I don't want to do again, and kind of have a better understanding.
You're still
of the
a
game
druid?
and really move through it. I am a druid, yes.
I
can wild shape, and I turn into an owlbear a lot, and owlbear is really fun and really strong. I really enjoy it.
Owlbear is very fun. Yeah, people complained a lot when the druid in the movie turned into an owlbear, because technically, like, they can't because of rules or whatever. But, like, who cares? It's awesome. Like, go for it.
So here's the thing, right? The owlbear is a monstrosity, not
Yes,
a natural
not a
animal.
natural creature.
It's two animals combined. So druids can only turn into natural animals. But why can't an owlbear be a natural animal in a fantasy world?
Yeah.
Why does it have to be a monstrosity? It's only a monstrosity in our world. So I think at some point that changed, which is for the better. Owlbears rock. More owlbears is better for everybody.
Yeah, I think once they start giving birth in the material plane, go for it.
I'll
Yeah,
say this: I don't know if it's a spoiler, but in Act 1, I rescued an owlbear cub at one point, and now he's in my camp. So whenever I go to my camp, he's just like chilling there, hanging out. And I have I have speak with animals as a skill, and so I'll go have conversations with them sometimes.
You do not want to know what I did to those owlbears.
Oh no! Oh no!
I did a little of column A, a little of column B on that front. But yeah.
All right, Drew. You got
My-
one more. Your top game.
My number one game of the year is Marvel's Spider-Man 2 for the PlayStation 5. I don't think I've been as obsessed or taken with the game as I was with this in a long time. Man, I just played this every minute that I could when I wasn't working or sleeping. Neglected my family, of course, to play this game. And if it made me neglect my family, surely that means it's good enough to be my number one game of the year. So yeah, Marvel Spider-Man 2. If you like the first one, absolutely play this. It's the sequel that just expands and enhances everything that's great about the first one, and has probably an even better storyline somehow. So I really, really enjoyed it. And enough said about Spider-Man 2.
You just made a lot of very, very salty people very happy, because there's so much hatred from Spider-Man 2 fans about Baldur's Gate winning. They're so mad.
Yeah, because
All right.
Spider-Man 2 would have been like a clear front runner to be a game of the year, potential winner if it wasn't Zelda. And Baldur's Gate 3 just ate everyone's lunch this year.
Everybody, yeah.
All right, you want some salty fans? Check this out. My list is a hot take, and I'm gonna get.
Oh,
peed
it's a
all over.
very hot take.
I'm gonna get peed all over for this list. Coming in number 3, the legendary Baldur's Gate 3. No hate for Baldur's Gate. It's awesome. It's totally voice acted. It looks fine. Plays fine. But I don't find myself drawn to it, pulled to it, itching to play it at all hours. I'm not thinking about it all the time. I'm not posting on the subreddit my different builds and stuff. Maybe it's because I have so much experience with D&D already. Maybe if I didn't know the builds and I was exploring and learning this stuff, it would be different for me. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Baldur's Gate is undeniable. But it comes into my number 3 spot. Not my number 1, and not my number 2. My number 2 spot. This is a free-to-play game made by the guys who made Battlefield. A bunch of them left, developed their own studio. The finals. The whole map is completely destructible. It's a team-based game that's not a battle royale for once. It's a shooter that feels fresh and new and bright and colorful and fun to play. I'm loving the finals. It came out pretty recently. I think sort of October was its first open beta, and now December was its official release. So it has a lot of time to fail. You know what I mean? It has a hot release, but just because you come out hot doesn't mean that you have a great game. And that's what put the finals at number 2 for me. And to everyone's surprise, including my own, I didn't think that my number 1 pick was going to be Starfield, but it is. The same way that Drew said he put all those hours into Spider-Man and was neglecting his family, 120 hours into Starfield in like the first 2 weeks. I mean, I couldn't put it down. I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop taking hilarious screenshots and building awesome ships and sharing them with my friends. The first night that the game came out, the 3 of us were on Xbox together playing like day 1 release. Couldn't wait to start the download. How excited we were to play. It just reminded me of being a kid, and when that hot, fresh game comes out and you and all your friends want to play it. I don't know if it was the timing or the game or what it was, but the whole thing around Starfield, even though it was, in my opinion, a huge letdown and not at all what I thought it was going to be, and it has its problems, it was still my favorite game of the year, where I spent the most time and I think I had the most fun.
And that's completely valid. That's fair. I'm glad that you acknowledged that it was, because I also felt extremely let down by Starfield. It did not keep bringing me back. That's why it's not on my list. It still did a lot of cool things and is impressive in a lot of ways. It just wasn't what I wanted. But
no, I've said this and I keep saying it. It feels like they took the weapon system from Skyrim, but they had to slim it down so it would fit in the game. And then it feels like they took the housing system and had to slim it down, and the follower system and slimmed it down. And it feels like it's all these systems that they've perfected over the years, but they gave us almost the worst version of each system. And so while it is a cool game with cool bones, it fails. It fails so many places, especially compared to its predecessors, where you're like, bro, did you guys drop the ball coming up here? I'm just sure the game couldn't handle it. It must have been too big or something. Not to make excuses for them. There are tons of issues with Starfield, but I still loved it.
I'm genuinely glad this is your number 1, because when it came out and we were having our initial discussions about it, Gary, you were clear. You were like, this is not just one of my favorite games of the year. You were like, this could be one of my favorite games of all time.
Yeah, it really is something else.
And this is the end of your list, so it kind of gets into our honorable mentions. But first off, with my list, Resident Evil 4 took my number 3 spot. But with games, I'm a little bit more fluid, I feel like, than I am with like movies, where I feel like my number 3 spot for games really could have been interchangeable with any of these honorable mentions. And Starfield's one of mine that I almost made my number 3. So Maybe I'm wrong in this, because Jahan, he clearly leans, while he plays a lot on PC, he leans into the Xbox ecosystem as we do, and he's been clear about how he was a little bit disappointed with Starfield. That being said, I feel like Starfield is fantastic, and I feel like it has been overlooked a lot at the end of the year discussions, and I still just feel like there's some hate or bitterness for those that just are kind of anti-Xbox. And maybe that's just me speaking from my high horse, or my my smaller part of the video game fandom, because Xbox is a minority compared to the fans of PlayStation 5 and even Nintendo. And I just feel like people were almost, as soon as it became an Xbox exclusive, it's like people were rooting against it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just me being defensive for my Xbox, but I think Starfield stands tall with some of the best of this year.
You're not wrong. Also, from like that kind of standpoint, I feel like a lot of I feel like if Starfield had come out without all the fanfare, without like all the promises, and without it being a Bethesda game, if this just came from somewhere, I didn't have expectations, I would have been like, wow, this game's really cool and great. But I had a lot of expectations, and it just fell so short. It was hard for me to get into it. It's still a good game. I will give it that.
I understand. When there is DLC, because there's gonna be, I will be jumping back into it and playing more. Also, just shout out to Star Wars Jedi Survivor, another game I loved this year that could have been in my number 3 spot. And Final Fantasy 16, just a fantastic new Final Fantasy game this year. It's kind of crazy that a new numbered Final Fantasy game didn't make my top 3 because I'm such a mark for that series. I love it so much, and this one was great, but just it was a strong year, man. Spider-Man 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Jedi Survivor, Starfield. Like we've been very fortunate this year in the video game.
It's been a solid game year, yeah, for sure.
On my honorable mention, I have Dead Island 2 to talk about.
That's fun.
It was an absolutely stellar game, killer, and it's maybe some of the best melee combat I've ever played. Also, it's 3-player co-op, so I'm about that life. Me and Jahan put some hours into it, and then once he carried on or had to go back to real life for his job or whatever he had to do, I started putting hours in with strangers because that game is so fun. That's how you can tell if a game's fun or not. If you're willing to play co-op online with strangers, then the game's got something going for it. It's cooking.
Yeah, no, I mean, I also enjoyed it. Like, being able to dropkick zombies, like, halfway across the road, and then your friend runs over and chops their head off. It's very fun. It's definitely an enjoyable co-op experience. I feel like they lost some stuff from Dead Island 1 that I missed. They kind of simplified it in ways that I didn't like. But overall, it's still a solid game, and it was very fun. And if you want a good co-op zombie game, this is it can hang with the best of the co-op zombie genre. My honorable mentions are honorable mentions because they did not come out this year, so I didn't feel right putting them on my list. But these are the games that consumed all of my time this year. In case it seems like I wasn't gaming that hard, I was gaming plenty, just with some older games. Darktide. It's on Game Pass, free on Game Pass. Darktide's Warhammer 40K video game, co-op, online, mission-based.
This year?
It came out 2022 at the end.
Oh, okay.
But I feel like its final form, where it got really good and like recommendable, was this year. Like, they did a lot of improvements. They came through. They fixed a lot of the classes. They did a complete overhaul, added a lot of missions, enemies, all that stuff. All that happened this year. Darktide is very fun. This is, I think, was my number 1 Xbox, like, time-wise game, was Darktide, what I put the most hours into. And then Battlefield 2042, that one's an oldie but a goodie. They also overhauled this game, and it went from being pretty disappointing to one of my favorite Battlefield installments. Like, it's very fun.
It went from being maybe the
second or third worst.
Yeah. And now it's one of the best.
One of the best
that's
ones.
one of the good things about these live support games. I know that people have different opinions on whether games should come out in their final form or whether they should be live support games. As a multiplayer guy, I love live support games. They always give me something to keep me coming back and something to look forward to and something to get my friends back interested if they've fallen away from a game. I love that, and I'm glad that you put these in your honorable mentions. I was trying to keep my list to stuff this year, but in the state that video games are, they sort of last for 2 or 3 years these days. And if your live support's going really well, look at World of Warcraft. They've been in live support for almost 20 years now. The live support community really does work if you can keep producing great content.
Great for multiplayer games. It's fantastic for multiplayer games. I don't see that it has a place in single player.
There's something about, when I play Far Cry, and if the DLC is out, I might get it, I might play it, but I'm never going to go back and reinstall Far Cry and then go buy old DLC that I missed. There's something about the live support that doesn't work in single player games.
Yeah.
If you're going to make DLC, your roadmap better be fast. It better be fast, because once that game's gone, it's gone. A lot of people aren't going to reinstall it. So you're right. Something about multiplayer games. You keep it installed. You keep playing the same game. They have more longevity, and live service does work better that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree completely. But yeah, those are our top 3 lists, guys. That was 2023, fresh out the podcast style. That was a lot of fun.
Drew,
I,
you
I do
floored
have
me.
a question.
Yeah.
You floored me with Jury Duty. That's the one I wanted to say that you floored me with. That was the breakout star of this one for me.
Great show. I wanted to ask y'all, is there anything that you maybe didn't get to play or watch this year that you think maybe could have potentially cracked one of your lists, but you just haven't had a chance to get to it yet? Like, as an example, there's a
don't
lot of
have-
best of...
I don't
you
have
know,
a single doubt that Killers of the Flower Moon is better than all three things on my list. And so it would probably shift everything and push Guardians of the Galaxy off the list. Barbie would be third. Asteroid City would probably be second. That's a big one.
There's a lot that I didn't get to see and play this year for sure. One of the things being Poor Things. I feel like that might have made my list had I had a chance to see it. It's pretty new, and that's mostly why.
It's in theaters now. I just got to catch it this past week, and it is profoundly weird, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's very good, or it looks very good, and I would love to watch it. Game wise, a lot. Game wise, I feel like my list was very short because I didn't get to play a lot of new games this year. I feel like Armored Core, Fires of Rubicon would have been on my list probably. Super Mario RPG probably could have made it on there.
That's an honorable mention for me, for sure. I forgot to mention that, and Super Mario Wonder would both be in my honorable mentions.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I forgot to mention The Boy and the Heron for honorable movie mention, but
Oh, yeah.
that was a good one.
At this point, you guys are
Just
just
barely fell out of my top 10.
you're doing dishonorable mentions at this point.
Pretty much, yeah.
These are the ones you forgot to write down. This is this is dishonorable.
Yeah, no, ones I just missed this year. There's a lot of them. I want to play a bigger variety this coming year. I want to play more different games because, like, I tend to find the few I like and play the crap out of them all year. So I'm hoping to get a little bit more spice in my life.
I do want to shout out, it's been on a lot, it's nominated for Game of the Year. It's been on a lot of top lists, but Alan Wake 2 is one that I haven't had a chance to play yet. I just picked it up, though. I got an Xbox gift card for Christmas, and Alan Wake 2 and Alan Wake Remastered were heavily discounted in the end-of-year Xbox sale, so I was able to pick up both of those. So I'm planning to do an Alan Wake Remastered playthrough.
It does look very
replay of
good.
the first one.
Yo,
And then Alan
I
Wake
got an
2,
Xbox gift card too, and instead I bought a game called Crime Boss Rocket City. It looks like a Grand Theft Auto ripoff in first person. It's got like Chuck Norris on the cover. It's supposed to be like really cheesy and stupid, like a Saints Row kind of game. I can't wait to get into it. It looks really dumb and fun.
That's hilarious.
That is really funny. And yeah, Gary, speaking of Killers of the Flower Moon, it's really interesting because it's an Apple movie, Apple TV movie. Apple paid for it. They had it help of
Is it-
distributing it with Paramount
Is it
to
on
help to put it in
Apple
theaters.
TV yet?
So it's strange. I thought after a short theatrical run that then it would be streaming on Apple TV Plus because they've been clear that they are working with distributors like with Napoleon as well to get them in theaters because the market research shows that if it's been in theaters, it performs better on streaming. And then it is on Apple TV now, but you have to pay for it. It's a full purchase. For now, it will be made free to stream on the service or to subscribers of the service eventually. But to me, it seems like a huge missed opportunity that they didn't have it available to stream on there during Christmas time and the holidays when people are home from work and have the time to watch a 3.5-hour drama. Like, just feels like a missed opportunity. Surely it'll be on there within the next month or two because they'll want it streaming on their service in advance of the Oscars because it'll be a big awards contender. But just very strange from a strategy purpose from
The
Apple.
only
I
reason
don't
I could
really
think
understand
that-
it.
The only reason I could think they would do that is it's not a feel-good movie. Like you said, it's a 3-hour drama. It is not a Christmas movie. It's not everybody gather around the tree and watch this. That's the only reason I could think they wouldn't have released it during the holidays. Otherwise, you're right. That's when people have time. I would have watched it, but to be fair, I'll watch it as soon as I can.
Yeah. So we'll see. We still have to do our fresh picks of the week as well. You know, we didn't do a traditional
fresh picks.
we didn't do our traditional fresh movies, TV, and games because we replaced that with our top things of the year. But is there anything that you have experienced in the past week that you want to put a spotlight on as your fresh pick of the week?
My fresh pick of the week. At the end of every month, I get to have the joy of the switching of the Marvel Snap season. They do a new theme. I know you guys don't really play as much anymore, but I'm still completely hooked. I play like a maniac. Last season was the Hellfire Club was the theme, so we got a lot of cool cards from there. A lot of new strategies. This month is Planet Hulk, and it's already turning out to be one of my favorite seasons. So like recently, you get what's his name, Scar, Hulk's son. If you get the season pass, you get him right out the bat. He has a really cool power where he gets 2 cheaper for every 10 power creature you have out. So he's an 11 that you can play for free sometimes. It's very fun. And eventually I get World Buster Hulk as the skin later on. So that's pretty exciting. I'm still hooked on Marvel Snap, and I just wanted to point out, hey, if you haven't tried it, it's free, and it's very fun. So...
Here.
Love it.
For me, it's the One Piece show on Netflix. Not only did I love it, not only did it make my favorite of the year, I binged the whole thing. I watched the first and second episodes, and then all the rest, and then just left the last episode and was like, if I leave it there, maybe more episodes will come out. And then I went ahead and finished that one too. You know, it's one of those things where, like Jahan said earlier, sometimes you just don't want your show or you don't want your game to end, so you just put it down for a while. I had that with One Piece. I put it down for, only like an afternoon was all I could do. It was like, okay, I'll put it down. I won't finish it until, okay, fine, right now. It was great. Phenomenal. Loved One Piece. That's what I was watching over the break. That's what consumed all my time during Christmas.
Awesome. And for my fresh pick of the week, I'm going with Ferrari, which is the new film starring Adam Driver as Enzo Ferrari, directed by Michael Mann, of Heat fame and Collateral and a lot of other good movies.
Wait a second. Sorry to interrupt. Adam Driver is in Ferrari?
He is.
Does he drive a Ferrari?
He does not, because he's older. That's
ironic.
Oversees Ferrari and the racing that goes on there, but he drives a Ferrari, but he's not racing a Ferrari.
Well, his name's not Adam Racer, so that'd be ridiculous.
No, it's Driver. Yeah. Don't be crazy, Drew.
Don't be crazy.
Fair. Sorry, you're right. So I guess the answer to your question actually was yes, because he does drive. But no, this is a biopic that. I was like, new Michael Mann movie. I like Michael Mann just fine. I think he's hit and miss. He has some movies I really love and some that really don't get any play in my ride, as Gary would say. And I went into this just like, interested, but not hyped, I guess. And I was kind of blown away by it. I thought it was very good. Adam Driver's performance is great, but Penelope Cruz is especially fantastic. But it's a interesting highlight in the life of Enzo Ferrari and his family and what was going on with his affairs, but also features a good amount of racing. This features two scenes, one in particular, but 2 crash scenes that made me gasp. One is one of the most brutal crash scenes I've ever seen in a movie. It was extremely intense. But overall, I thought this movie was extremely well done and just a surprise hit for me, and it made it into my top 10 list. So it's the most recent movie I saw in theaters, and it is for sure my fresh pick of the week. But I also wanted to give another shout out. I know I'm kind of cheating because I have 2, but I have a shout out for a book. We don't talk too much here about what we've been reading all the time. I between all the games, movies, and TV shows, things that I'm...
One of the big problems is that I don't have eyes, so I can't read books.
That makes it tough for sure. It's just tough. I spend most of my time watching and playing things, so I don't spend as much
Yeah.
time reading. But
I have eyes, and but I read with my hands because I only read Braille, but I don't have hands.
Interesting. But this book that I wanted to shout out is called Oscar Wars: A History of Hollywood in Gold, Sweat, and Tears, and by Michael Schulman. This is just, pandering to me at this point. It is a movie, or excuse me, a book all about the creation of the Academy and the Academy Awards and how this award show came to be and the politics behind it. And a lot of what we see at the Oscars now existed back in the 1920s when it was created. And I'm not that far into the book. I've just finished the first section, which is all about the creation of the Academy during the silent film era and the transition to the talkies and movies with sound. But so far, I'm really enjoying this book and wanted to shout it out because I got some time to read over the New Year's holiday, which was very enjoyable.
Hell yeah, man. I'm embarrassed about how little I read because I used to read all the time. But hey, yesterday was Stuff Your Kindle Day, where you got a bunch of free Kindle ebooks. So maybe I'll read some of those soon.
There's a brand new library that they built out near my neighborhood that we went to this past weekend on Saturday morning with my daughter, and it was beautiful. It's like such a nice building, super modern, lots of glass windows, so plenty of sunlight that floods the place, and just I like libraries in general. Being in a brand new library where it just smells new and everything, it was incredible. It was a great experience.
I love libraries too. Libraries are actually, I don't want to do a, what do you call it, service announcement, but they provide a lot of useful services for communities beyond just simply the availability of books. So check out your local library, guys. What, Gary?
Uh-oh.
Gary's pulling back. God, that must have been bad. Okay, but yeah, so that was our fresh picks. That was our top 3 of 2023. That was good stuff, guys. I had a lot of fun with that. So, hey, thank you everyone for listening. Let us know what you thought of our lists on the Twitter space, on the Blue Skies, on the whatevers, or just to our faces, because some of you know us. But hey, this has been Fresh Out the Podcast. I've been the board game guru, game master extraordinaire, Johananan.
I am the media movie mastermind, the Funhouse, Drew Munhausen. You can find me at Drew Munhausen on all the different social media platforms. And I think Gary's mic is failing him, so I've got this. I am Casualty CDG, co-host of Fresh Out the Box and Fresh Out the Podcast. And you can watch Fresh Out the Box different nights during the week to hear me and Jahan stream stuff and play games. And
you don't know our schedule. Why are you doing?
You can see me and my beard, and I'm pretty funny, and that's me, Gary.
Nailed it.
There, he's back. All right, and thanks everyone. Stay fresh. And Happy New Year.